My brother once told me, in front of our entire extended family, that I was the one who never amounted to anything. He didn't whisper it. He said it loudly, over Thanksgiving dinner, while our mother nodded along like he'd just stated the weather. I was 36 years old. I had a quiet condo in Denver, a quiet job in finance that nobody at that table understood or cared to ask about, and a habit of smiling instead of arguing. That smile had become my armor over the years. It cost me nothing to wear, and it told them exactly what they wanted to believe, that I had nothing to say back. My brother, Ryan, was the golden one, always had been. When he announced he was starting a logistics startup 3 years ago, our parents threw him a celebration dinner at their favorite steakhouse. When I got a promotion that same year, nobody mentioned it once. When his company nearly folded in its first 18 months, bad partners, worse cash flow, the family rallied around him with sympathy, not scrutiny. He's young. He's trying. Nobody asked where the rescue money during that crisis had actually come from. They just assumed a bank loan, or maybe our father quietly helping again. It wasn't a bank. It wasn't our father. It was me. 2 years earlier, when Ryan first pitched his idea to me privately, nervous, unsure, asking if I knew anyone in finance who might look at his numbers, I didn't tell him I'd put money in myself. I structured it through a small investment LLC I'd built years prior for entirely different reasons, something with a generic name that meant nothing to anyone at our family table. To him, the wire transfer that saved his company during the crisis came from an investor group his advisor connected him with. That was technically true. The advisor worked for me. I didn't do it for credit. I did it because I believed in him, even when he clearly didn't believe in me. But sitting at that dinner table, listening to him call me a failure while wearing a watch I recognized, bought, I knew, from a tranche of funding I'd personally approved 3 months earlier, something in me went very still. Not angry, just still, the kind of still that comes right before a decision. The comments didn't stop after that dinner. They became a pattern. At my cousin's wedding, Ryan introduced me to a stranger as my sister. She's in some office job, nothing exciting. At Christmas, my mother asked when I'd figure out what I wanted to do with my life, while Ryan posted a slideshow of his company's growth numbers in the family group chat, numbers that I, frankly, had reviewed before he sent them, because his finance team still ran things past my LLC's advisor without knowing the chain led to me. I kept my silence, partly out of habit, partly because I was watching something else unfold. Ryan's company was about to close a much larger funding round, a real institutional one this time, with due diligence far more rigorous than anything he'd faced before. That meant lawyers. That meant a full cap table review. That meant every investor entity, every shareholder, every name attached to every prior round would be unsealed, verified, and disclosed, including mine. I had a choice to make. I could quietly exit my position before the round closed. Cash out, stay invisible, let him have his moment uninterrupted, the way I always had. Or I could let the truth surface exactly where it was supposed to, in the room where it actually mattered, not as a confrontation, but as a fact. I thought about every dinner, every office job comment, every time my mother introduced Ryan's achievements before asking, almost as an afterthought, "And how's work going for you, honey?" I decided I wasn't going to hide anymore, not out of spite, out of simple, overdue fairness. I called my advisor and confirmed one thing. When the due diligence documents were finalized, my name would appear exactly as it should, full, accurate, undisguised. No more shell distance. No more quiet protection of someone else's ego at the cost of my own truth. Then I did something I'd never done before. I told our father not to expose Ryan, but because he deserved to know before anyone else did. My father went quiet for a long moment, the way he does when he's recalculating something he thought he understood. "You've been doing this since the beginning?" he asked. "Since the beginning," I said. He didn't say much else, but 2 weeks later, he started asking me real questions about my work for the first time in years. The funding round closed on a Thursday. Ryan threw a celebration dinner that Saturday, the same kind of dinner he'd had 3 years earlier, except bigger, louder, at a private room downtown with a banner that said, "Believe in the vision." I almost didn't go, but I went. Midway through dinner, his lead investor, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Patricia who'd flown in for the round's official close, mentioned casually to the table that the diligence process had been smooth, thanks to the existing investor base, and added, almost as a compliment to Ryan, that one name on the early cap table had impressed her legal team the most for its discipline and risk management. She said my full name. The table went quiet in that particular way only families can manage, a silence with weight, with history shifting underneath it. Ryan's face changed first. Pale, then confused, then something closer to disbelief, like he was rerunning every memory of the last 2 years through a different lens. "Wait," he said slowly. That's you." "That's me," I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. My mother set down her fork. My father, who already knew, simply watched, his expression unreadable but not surprised. "You've had money in my company this whole time?" Ryan asked. "Since the beginning." "Since the beginning," I said again. "Since you needed someone to believe in you, and I did. I just never needed you to know it was me. Not until tonight." Nobody at that table called me a failure again. Not that night. Not since. Ryan and I talked privately weeks later. A real conversation. The first honest one we'd had in years. He apologized, not performatively, but with the kind of quiet shame that comes from realizing you misjudged someone for a very long time. I told him I didn't need an apology as much as I needed him to actually see me, going forward, as someone whose life had value even when it wasn't loud. I think about that dinner often, not with bitterness, but with a strange kind of peace. I spent years being underestimated, and somewhere along the way, I stopped needing them to notice. I just kept building quietly on my own terms. The truth doesn't always need an audience to be true, but sometimes it deserves one anyway. Would you have stayed silent as long as I did? Or would you have let the truth out the moment they first underestimated you?